What's going on, friends? Welcome back to College Sports Corner. Thursday afternoon, day's almost done. We got one more day, and Friday's here. We're going to go over the games this weekend. We got some news. No games tonight for some reason. I don't know why. Kind of pisses me off. I always enjoyed Thursday night college football, but for some reason we don't have it. Did have a game last night. We'll go over that. But hey, before we get started, hit that little subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything. You don't have to watch it. Just listen to it in the background while you're at work. Act like you're working and listen to some college football talk while you're doing it, huh? All right. So let's get down to some news. First thing, TCU fined $50,000 by the Big 12 for storming the field after that beatdown, I guess, of Oklahoma. I'm sure the big school like TCU, it's probably just pulled out of their back pocket, gave it to them right there at the end of the game and said, here, that's for this down there. So $50,000. A lot of these conferences, some of the fines they give out, you're like, how is that hurting the school any? $50,000. They probably make that in concession stand sales alone. But anyway, that's what they did. I'm sure TCU, they don't care. Okay, so we've had some people go down this week. Colorado, they fired Karl Dorrell after an 0-5 start. This was his third season in Colorado. He went 8-15. I don't know what's going on there in Colorado. They used to have a pretty decent football program back in the day. Man, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. Recent line of coaches just can't seem to get it done. But anyway, they're looking for a new coach. Hey, if you're a coach, put it in your resume. You never know. One here that I understand, but I don't understand at the same time. Wisconsin getting rid of Paul Chryst. Yeah, they've gone 2-3 this year, having a bad year. But everybody has a down year. I mean, hell. So I'm not sure why they got rid of him. I don't know who they're planning on getting. Crazy, but he went 67-26 while he was there. He had seasons of 10, 11, 13 wins, dropped down to 8, went back up to 10, and 9 wins before this year. Defensive coordinator Jim Leonhard, he's going to take over as interim coach. Like I said, this is kind of surprising, and I watched the press conference Sunday night. It's on about 9 p.m. here, Central Time. The body language and impressions of athletic director Chris McIntosh is like he really didn't want to do this. I don't know if he didn't want to fire him or make a change because Paul Chryst is a great guy, great coach, great friend. Or if the orders came from above, make a change now. But his whole body language and impression during that press conference was just like, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be there. But here we are. And anyway, yeah, it's kind of surprising. But, I mean, everybody gets into this business knows what can happen. So, moving on. Nick Saban says Bryce Young is day-to-day. See what happens after that injury last week during the Arkansas game. Part of the reason SMU lost last night could be because 4 players are sitting out the rest of the season with intentions on entering the transfer portal. Safety Wacobia, I think that's how you say his name. Defensive back Chromatic. Receivers Daniels Jr. and Record. And it could be a big reason why that game went the way it did last night. SMU just when a runner, Central Florida runner or receiver was in the secondary, those guys could not tackle with a crap. Quarterback, Morduke, whatever his name is, he didn't seem to have any targets out there. So, I mean, those receivers are sitting out. Could be a big reason why, but I don't know. We'll go over that game here in a minute. Auburn's Leitoa and Calzada, both going under season-ending surgeries. LSU defensive back Banks will miss 5 to 6 weeks. Spinal cord bruise. That's got to hurt. Georgia's defensive tackle Carter out for a week or 2 with a knee injury. Tennessee's defensive back Burrell has season-ending upper body surgery. Don't know exactly what happened, but anyway. Hey, get well, guys. Prayers to you guys. Hope you can get out back on the field sometime soon in the future. All right, yeah, so last night's game, UCF, man, 41, SMU 19. This was actually a good game until halftime. And then I don't know what happened. Central Florida made halftime adjustments. SMU didn't. or the ones they made just weren't good enough. But UCF just started pounding on the points. I want to say, if I remember right, I heard last night they scored 31 unanswered in the second half. So UCF's Plumlee was 20 for 29, 316 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. See here, who else was there scoring there in that game? Bowser, 62 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. And O'Keefe, 117 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. So that one. If I remember right, that puts UCF at 4-1 and SMU down to 2-3. I think that's what the records are. But this was a makeup game from the Hurricane. They moved it to this night. So I don't know if that played a part in it, dragging it out or whatever. I don't know. But missing them 4 players, I'm sure that didn't help SMU any at all. All right, let's get down to this weekend. Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, FS1, Nebraska 2-3 at Rutgers 3-2. If you saw that game against Indiana last Saturday night, Nebraska looked like the old Nebraska. Played outstanding, both sides of the ball. Defense had about a 4 or 5 minute period where they didn't look that good, but the rest of the game, they looked terrific. So who knows? Maybe this is Nebraska's run on the way to a bowl game. Nebraska does outpass and outrush Rutgers. Thompson has 1,265 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, but he's thrown 4 picks this year. Grant, 600 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. They average 438 total yards a game, but they do have 278 yards in penalties there. Rutgers averages 331 total yards a game and 318 yards in penalties they've racked up this year. Next game, 7:30 Eastern on ESPN2. Houston Cougars 2-3 at Memphis 4-1. Houston's Tune 1,201 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, pretty good. Dell has 453 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Let's see here. Hennigan from Memphis, 1,276 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. Thomas has 6 rushing touchdowns for the Tigers. 10:30 Eastern on FS1, Colorado State 0-4, and Nevada 2-3. Looks like Air Force is the only decent team in Colorado. Colorado State's only averaging 46 rushing yards a game, 196 passing yards, and they average 242 total yards a game. Probably a big reason why they're 0-4. Nevada outrushes Colorado State, but Colorado State does have a better passing game than Nevada. Nevada, they average 280 total yards a game. So 2 teams that need a win very, very bad, even though Nevada's already got 2 of them. Colorado's got 0, but man, Nevada trying to get back to 500. 10:30 Eastern on CBS Sports. UNLV 4-1 at San Jose State 3-1. That could be a pretty good late game on Friday night. UNLV's Brumfield, 1,223 passing yards, 8 touchdowns. Robbins has 8 rushing touchdowns. They average 423 yards a game. Rebels got 375 yards of penalties racked up so far this year. Spartans Corderio, 1,078 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. Robinson has 4 rushing touchdowns. They average 368 total yards a game. They've only got 184 yards of penalties so far this year. So not too bad compared to a lot of these teams we see. They're up into the 200s and even 300s already throughout this year. All right, going to Saturday, noon on the Big Ten Network, noon Eastern. Purdue 3-2 at Maryland, 4-1. Purdue's O'Connell, 1,199 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Jones, 588 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns for Purdue. Let's see, Tua for Maryland, 1,416 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions so far. Both teams have over 350 yards racked up in penalties this year. Noon Eastern, ACC Network, Louisville 2-3 at Virginia, 2-3. 2 ACC teams that need a win very badly. Louisville's better in the rushing game than Virginia is. Louisville's Cunningham, 968 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. But he has rushed for 457 yards and 9 touchdowns. Both have over 100 first downs this year. but both also have over 350 yards in penalties racked up so far. This one here looks like, who would have thought this game here when you mentioned this game back last spring? Who would have thought that this would be a pretty good game? Noon Eastern FS1, number 17 TCU at number 19 Kansas. And I believe Game Day is going to be there if you still watch Game Day. TCU 4-0, Kansas 5-0. Dugan for TCU, 997 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. Miller has 5 rushing touchdowns. Daniels for Kansas, 983 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. Neal has 333 rushing yards this year so far and 4 touchdowns. TCU averages 252 rushing yards, 298 passing yards, and 550 total yards a game, where Kansas averages 219 rushing yards, 201 passing yards, 420 total yards a game. TCU, they have managed to get 95 first downs this year. Kansas, 103. When it comes to penalties, actually these teams are probably maybe average. TCU, 229 yards and penalties racked up this year. KU, 274. So that's a lot better than some teams are doing. This game used to be the game of the year a lot, but I kind of lost its luster the last few weeks. Noon Eastern ABC, Texas 3-2 at OU 3-2, the Red River Shootout. Passing yards are pretty even, but OU, they outrush UT, even though they got Robinson. He does have 8 rushing TDs this year. UT averages 417 total yards. OU averages 481 total yards. OU's Gabriel has passed for 1,215 yards and 11 touchdowns. Yeah, like I said, this game here, it kind of lost some of its luster. But it's still a rivalry game that's been going on for years. So
These guys, they want to beat each other bad. So it could be a pretty good game to watch. Yeah, if you're not watching TCU in Kansas. Noon Eastern on Fox. Number 4, Michigan 5-0 at Indiana 3-2. Michigan's McCarthy, 848 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Corum, 611 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns. Pretty good. Michigan outrushes Indiana. Indiana's a little bit better in the passing game than Michigan. Basilick for Indiana, 1,394 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Noon Eastern ESPN Plus. Buffalo 2-3 at Bowling Green 2-3. Buffalo averages 369 total yards. Bowling Green 328 total yards. Noon CBS Sports, Eastern Michigan at Western Michigan. Eastern Michigan 3-2. Western Michigan 2-3. Eastern Michigan averages 376 total yards, where Western Michigan averages 302 total yards. Noon Eastern, ESPNU, Missouri 2-3 at Florida 3-2. Missouri averages 375 total yards. Florida averages 413 total yards. UF outrushes and outpasses Mizzou. But Mizzou, hey, they gave Georgia a hell of a game. They almost pulled it off, but it just didn't work out for them. So it might be a good, decent game. Noon Eastern, ESPN. Number 8, Tennessee at number 25, LSU. Tennessee 4-0, LSU 4-1. Tennessee's a good team. LSU's gotten better. Plus, Tiger Stadium at 11 a.m. Hey, it's still going to be tough. Remember what happened to Florida? What was it, last year or the year before? So, hell, check it out. Might be pretty good. Hooker for Tennessee, 1,193 passing yards, 8 touchdowns. Wright has 4 rushing touchdowns. Tennessee averages 559 total yards a game. Daniels for LSU, 915 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. He's rushed for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns. LSU averages 443 total yards a game. Both teams are pushing 300 yards in penalties. They might get it a break it this week. Just hang on. Noon Eastern SEC Network, Arkansas 3-2 at number 23 Mississippi State 4-1. KJ Jefferson for Arkansas, 1,096 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, interception. Is that just 1 interception? Damn. Sanders, 609 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Rogers for Mississippi State,
1,715 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He's having a hell of a season. Arkansas averages 459 total yards. Mississippi State 440 in the total yards. 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN3, Akron 1-4, and Ohio 2-3. Akron's Irons got 6 touchdown passes, but they're 1-4. Rourke for Ohio, he's got 11 touchdown passes. 2 p.m. Eastern, ESPN3, Georgia Southern 3-2 at Georgia State 1-4. Van Treese for Georgia Southern, 1,574 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, but he has thrown 7 picks. White, he's rushed for 450 yards and 7 touchdowns for Georgia Southern. On the other hand, Granger for Georgia State, 1,028 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Both these teams have good passing games. Rushing games are kind of close, but the passing is better for both teams. 2:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus. South Florida 1-4. At number 24, Cincinnati 4-1. South Florida averages 346 total yards, where Cincinnati averages 439 total yards a game. 3:30 Eastern, ACC Network. Vodtech 2-3 at Pitt 3-2. Each quarterback for these teams, Vodtech and Pitt, has over 980 passing yards and 5 touchdown passes each. Pitt, they edge Vodtech in the average rushing and passing yards, so their games are a little bit better. These are 2 ACC teams that probably thought their season was going to be going a lot better than it is. They're kind of like in the middle right now, so one of them gets a win, they'll be that step up a little bit closer, but not by much. 3:30 Eastern, FS1, Texas Tech 3-2 at number 7, Oklahoma State 4-0. Texas Tech Smith, 1,476 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Texas Tech averages 476 total yards a game. Oklahoma State Sanders, 1,097 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, only 2 picks. 2 good quarterbacks, both great passing games. Their rushing games are decent, but not as good as the passing game. Texas Tech, 32 penalties for 249 yards so far. Oklahoma State, get this, 17 penalties for only 159 yards. Probably a big reason why they're 4-0. They don't shoot themselves in the foot that much. 3:30 Eastern, Big Ten Network, Wisconsin with their interim coach. They're 2-3. At Northwestern, 1-4. Wisconsin's Mertz got 997 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Allen's got 499 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Wisconsin averages 388 total yards. Northwestern, Helinski, 1,404 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Hull, he's got 3 rushing touchdowns. They average 405 total yards a game. It's crazy that they're 1-4, but man, they've made so many mistakes on the field that that offensive output is just not going to help them win games unless they get some of these mistakes cleaned up. Really thought Northwestern would be better and Wisconsin would be better, but anyway. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus, Toledo 3-2, and Northern Illinois 1-4. Both teams are close in average rushing and passing yards. Total yards per game are pretty close with these two also. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus, Ball State 2-3 at Central Michigan 1-4. Paddock for Ball State, 1,538 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. He has thrown 6 picks, though. Steele, 501 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns for Ball State. Central Michigan's Richardson, 1,376 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And just like Steele, Nichols for Central Michigan, he's got 5 rushing touchdowns. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus, Kent State 2-3, Miami of Ohio 2-3. Kent State averages 442 total yards a game. Miami 304. 3:30 Eastern on Fox. This could probably be a pretty good game. Number 11 Utah 4-1, and number 18 UCLA 5-0. Rising for Utah, 1,153 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, only 2 picks this year he has thrown. He's also got 4 rushing touchdowns too, so the guy can run also. Vela, 3 touchdown catches for Utah. These two teams' rushing game is close and the passing game is close. Utah, total yards per game for each team is only a 50-yard difference. UCLA's Thompson Robinson, 1,211 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, but 1 interception for him. Charbonnet, 5 rushing TDs for him. Bobo has 3 touchdown catches for UCLA. Utah, they've got 124 first downs this year, but UCLA has gotten 133 first downs this year. Utah, 238 yards in penalties. UCLA, 276 yards in penalties. Both these teams are pretty even throughout. So like I said, this could be a pretty good afternoon game to watch. 3:30 Eastern, unless you want to watch this one. 3:30 Eastern, Auburn 3-2 at Georgia 5-0. Hey, Missouri game a game. You never know. Auburn might turn things around. So both teams have over 200 yards in penalties. Auburn 389 total yards. Georgia 521 total yards a game. 3:30 Eastern on CBS Sports. Tulsa 2-3 at Navy 1-3. Tulsa averages 463 total yards a game. Navy averages looks like 345. Can't read my writing. Anyway, 3:30 Eastern, ESPNU, Eastern Carolina 3-2 at Tulane. Tulane is 4-1. Look at Tulane go. Eastern Carolina, Allers, 1,539 passing yards, 15 touchdowns. He's thrown 3 picks, but it's a lot better than a lot of quarterbacks. East Carolina averages 486 total yards a game. For Tulsa, Pratt, 905 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Spears, he has 6 rushing touchdowns for the Green Wave. And the Green Wave averages 397 total yards a game. Tulane, not too bad of a team this year. 3:30 Eastern, ESPN Plus, Liberty 4-1 at UMass 1-4. Let's see, 3:30 Eastern on the Stadium website or Facebook page. I've watched games on their Facebook page. Middle Tennessee 3-2 at UAB 2-2. 4 p.m. Eastern, CBS, or no, it's that CSS. I guess it's Comcast Sports. Duke 4-1 at Georgia Tech 2-3. Duke outpasses and outrushes Georgia Tech, and they average 444 total yards a game. Georgia Tech averages 316 in total yards. 4 p.m. Eastern, ESPN2, North Carolina 4-1 at Miami 2-2. North Carolina's Mayo, 1,594 passing yards, 19 touchdowns to 1 interception. Hampton's got 5 rushing touchdowns. North Carolina averages 507 total yards a game. North Carolina's got over 314 yards in penalties this year. Miami's Van Dyke, 801 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Man, that is not good. Paris Jr.'s got 4 rushing touchdowns. But Miami averages over 450 total yards, so you're wondering what's going on here. 4 p.m. Eastern, ABC. Number 3, Ohio State 5-0 at Michigan State 2-3. Really disappointed in Michigan State this year. I don't know what's going on. C.J. Stroud for the Buckeyes, 1,376 passing yards, 18 touchdowns to 2 interception ratio. That's pretty good. Williams, 8 rushing touchdowns. And this guy, I never know how to say his name. I'm sorry, dude. I keep screwing your name up. Egbuka, 5 touchdown catches. Nice season for him. Thorne from Michigan State, 1,121 passing yards, 8 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Berger has 4 rushing touchdowns for the Spartans. 530 total yards is what the Buckeyes average. Spartans average 370. So, 4 p.m. Eastern, Pac-12 Network, number 20, Washington 4-1 at Arizona State 1-4. Washington's Penix Jr., man, this guy's pretty good. 1,733 passing yards, 16 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Washington averages 507 total yards a game. Arizona State's Jones, he's got 1,061 passing yards, but 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Let's see, 4 p.m. Eastern, SEC Network, number 9, Ole Miss 5-0 at Vandy 3-2. Remember, Vandy started off the year pretty good. They started off, 2-0, 3-0? And they lost a game. Then they won a game. Then they lost a game, won a game. But they might get a bowl game. They win a few more of these games, they can get into a bowl game. Jackson Dart for Ole Miss, 910 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Judkins, 535 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Ole Miss averages 470 total yards. Vandy averages 375 total yards a game. Let's get to these evening games. 6 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Western Kentucky 3-2. UTSA 3-2. Both teams who dominated their conference last year. Remember, Bailey Zape for Western Kentucky. He had 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns or something, but nobody ever mentioned him for the Heisman. Anyway, Western Kentucky's Reed, he's having a decent year. 1,663 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Western Kentucky averages 352 total yards a game. But get this, 351 yards in penalties so far this year. Both these teams, it's all in the passing game. They only average 150 rushing yards. Kind of crazy. UTSA's Harris, 1,724 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They averaged they got 331 yards in penalties so far this year. So, 7 p.m. Eastern, NFL Network, James Madison 4-0 at Arkansas State, 2-3. These teams, their passing games are pretty even, but James Madison, the rushing game is just a little bit better. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus, UTEP 3-3 at Louisiana Tech 1-3. UTEP's Hardison, 1,266 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. McNeil for La Tech, 901 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Both of them have good passing games, but their rushing games need a lot of work for these two teams. 7 p.m. Eastern, FS1. Air Force 4-1. Utah State 1-4. Really disappointing Utah State. I thought they'd be a lot better. Air Force averages 370 rushing yards a game. Roberts has 7 rushing touchdowns. They only average 91 passing yards. Figure Air Force flying high, they throw it through the air, but no, they keep it on the ground. Utah State averaging 202 passing yards a game, which is kind of crazy because Bonner was a great quarterback the last couple of years. I don't know what's happened this year. He's only got 6 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Kind of weird. When you think about the whole Mountain West, is kind of weird. They had all these teams the last few years that have dominated, and man, they're just not this year. I don't know. Case in point here, it's 7 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports. Wyoming, who's 3-3, at New Mexico, 2-3. Wyoming averages 296 total yards a game. New Mexico, 245. Man, both of them's rushing games average under 155 yards, so they get it done through the air. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Appalachian State 3-2, at Texas State 2-3. Bryce for Appalachian State, 1,279 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions so far this year. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Southern Miss 2-2 at Troy, 3-2. Southern Miss averages 368 total yards, for Troy averages 413. 7 p.m. Eastern, ESPN 3, UConn 2-4 at Florida International, 2-2. Both these teams, UConn, they got a decent rushing game, but their passing game is horrible. And when you flip the side, Florida International's got a horrible rushing game, but a decent passing game. So how's that going to work out? I guess you'll find out if you watch the game. 7:30 Eastern on the CSS. Army 1-3 at number 15, Wake Forest 4-1. Hartman for Wake Forest, 1,196 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They average 431 total yards a game. The Army averages 416. So we'll see what happens. 7:30 Eastern, ABC, number 5, Clemson 5-0 at Boston College, 2-3. Clemson's DJ, 1,242 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Shipley for Clemson, 7 rushing touchdowns. Pretty impressive. Zurkovic for Boston College, 1,147 passing yards, 10 touchdowns, but 6 interceptions. Flowers has 5 TD catches for Boston College. This game here has been good over the last few years. This year, I don't know. 7:30 Eastern, ESPNU, number 20, Kansas State 4-1 at Iowa State 3-2. Iowa State just not looking like the Iowa State we've seen. But hey, K-State averages 406 total yards a game, where Iowa State averages 382. K-State only 209 yards in penalties. It's a lot better than a lot of teams. Iowa State 251 yards in penalties. This one, it could be decent. Could be a good game. Depends on what Iowa team you're going to get. 7:30 Eastern, Big Ten Network, Iowa 3-2 at Illinois 4-1. Iowa averages 88 rushing yards a game, 154 passing yards a game, 242 total yards a game. So like I said, it depends on what Iowa team you're going to get is whether or not this is going to be a good game. So Illinois, they average 195 rushing yards a game, 230 passing yards a game, 425 total yards a game. DeVito for Illinois, 1,121 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now this one here, this one could be a good one. 7:30 Eastern on Fox. Washington State 4-1 at number 6 USC 5-0. Ward for Washington State, 1,445 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Both passing games for these teams are great. Williams got 1,402 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, and 1 interception. USC does have the better rushing game. Dye's got 5 rushing touchdowns for the Trojans. Addison's got 6 touchdown catches for the Trojans. Washington State got 101 first downs this year. USC's got 130. Washington State's only racked up 187 yards in penalties, where USC has racked up 323. So, yeah, that might be a good one to watch. USC can come back on some of those penalties. You know. 7:30 Eastern, SEC Network, South Carolina 3-2 at number 13, Kentucky 4-1. You know, Kentucky's at home. They're pissed off. South Carolina, though, they do outrush Kentucky. But passing games are pretty much even between those two. 395 total yards is what Carolina averages. Kentucky, 368. Getting down to the last few here. 7:30 Eastern on NBC. Number 16, BYU 4-1 at Notre Dame, 2-2. BYU's Hall, 1,438 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. Brooks has 4 rushing touchdowns. Hill has 4 touchdown catches for BYU. Payne for Notre Dame, 459 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Estamai, 4 rushing touchdowns. Mayer's got 3 touchdown catches for Notre Dame. Rushing games are close, but BYU's got a better passing game. BYU averages more total yards than Notre Dame. The other possible good one, 8 p.m. Eastern, probably will be a good one. ACC Network. Florida State 4-1 at number 14, NC State 4-1. Travis for Florida State, 1,226 passing yards, 8 touchdowns. They average 482 total yards a game. FSU does have a better rushing game than North Carolina State. Passing games are kind of close between these two teams. Larry, he's got 1,135 passing yards, 10 touchdowns. Wolfpack averaged 385 total yards a game. This game here, I'm not going to waste my time. 8 p.m. Eastern, CBS, Texas A&M 3-2 at Bama 5-0. A&M averages 130 rushing yards, average 205 passing yards, average 336 total yards. Bama averages 251 rushing yards, 274 passing yards, 525 total yards. Young, if he plays, he's got 14 touchdowns. Like I said before, everybody knows I'm an Aggie fan. I've got one toe left on the Jimbo train, and it's sliding off. The only thing that get me back on is if they went into Tuscaloosa, dominated, kicked Bama's butt, and won out, which we know that's not going to happen. Yeah, that'll get me back on the Jimbo Fisher train if that happens, if they win. I'm not going to do anything stupid or crazy like, well, if A&M wins this, I'm going to do this. Hell no. It's college football. We've all seen what happens. I'm sure back in 1998, some Temple fan said, hey, if we beat Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, I'll sleep with my sister. Well, guess what? Back in 1998, some Temple fans slept with his sister. Anything can happen in college football. I ain't doing that. So, 8 p.m. Eastern, ESPN Plus. Coastal Carolina 5-0 at La Monroe 2-3. McCall for Coastal Carolina, 1,336 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception. They average 464 total yards a game. Got maybe a couple decent late games. This one here could be a good game. 9 p.m. Eastern, Pac-12 Network. Number 12, Oregon 4-1. Arizona 3-2. You never know, it might be a good game. Arizona's better than they were. Bo Nix for Oregon, 1,261 passing yards, 12 touchdowns. Oregon outrushes Arizona, but Arizona's got a better passing game than Oregon. Oregon averages 499 total yards a game. Arizona's De Laura, 1,633 passing yards, 14 touchdowns. Coing has 7 touchdown catches. Arizona averages 476 total yards. Oregon's racked up 360 yards in penalties, where Oregon's only racked up 232. Arizona 232. Arizona keeps the mistakes down. They're playing at home. They're better than they were. You never know. That might be a good game to watch. They could beat Oregon. 9:45 Eastern on FS1. Fresno State 1-3 at Boise State 3-2. A couple other Mountain West teams we thought would be a lot better than they are, but Fresno averages 412 total yards, where Boise averages 317. Late one, 10:30 Eastern, CBS Sports. Hawaii 1-4 at San Diego State 2-3. Thought San Diego State would be a lot better. Hawaii 313 total yards they average, and San Diego State averages 258 total yards. Last but not least, your late game, 11 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Oregon State 3-2 at Stanford 1-3. Man, what's happened to Stanford? David Shaw, such a good job there. I don't know what's going on the last couple of years. Oregon State's Nolan, 939 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, but he's thrown 8 interceptions. Fenwick, 4 rushing touchdowns. Oregon State averages 428 total yards. Rushing and passing games between these two teams are kind of even. McKee for Stanford, 980 passing yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Williams, 4 touchdown catches, 411 total yards is what Stanford averages. So, Oregon and Arizona, that's probably going to be a good game. Oregon State and Stanford, that's got the potential to be a good one. Going by those numbers. So that is it. First of all, I'd like to thank Disney and Dish Network for quit being little third-grade bitches in their little slap fight. ESPN's back on all of his Dish subscribers network, so I'd like to thank y'all for that. Couple more hours left in today, and then tomorrow's Friday, and that's it. Weekend is here again. Y'all be careful. Be safe. We'll be back on sometime Sunday, to wrap up what happened tomorrow and Saturday. Anyway, y'all have a good day. We'll see you next time.